came, every wild animal you have ever seen was running a calculation about you. Not thinking about you, calculating. Speed of approach, direction of gaze, distance, escape routes. It happens in a fraction of a second, faster than a heartbeat, and almost always the answer is the same. Get away from the human. This is not something animals learn. It runs in creatures that have never met a person in their lives. Across hundreds of studies in species separated by millions of years, the verdict is nearly identical to a wild animal. A human is not neutral. A human is the single most dangerous predator that has ever existed on this planet, and yet came in December of 2011 off the coast of California. A humpback whale was found wrapped in hundreds of feet of crab trap line. The rope had sliced into its skin. It was cutting across the mouth, binding the fins, dragging the animal down. The whale had been struggling for hours, and it was exhausted. A team of divers went into the water beside a 50-ton animal that could have killed every one of them by accident. For over an hour, the whale held completely still while strangers cut the ropes away from its body. And when the last line finally fell, the whale did not vanish into the deep. It circled back. It approached each diver one by one slowly and pressed its body gently against them. Came one diver, said the whale rolled so that its eye, the size of a grapefruit, came level with his face and simply held there looking. So here's the question that has quietly obsessed biologists for decades. Did that whale know it was being helped? Did it feel anything close to what we would call gratitude? Or are we, the storytelling ape, just painting a human face onto a wet, indifferent machine? The honest answer is far stranger than either yes or no, and by the end of this, you will never look at a wild animal the same way again. To understand any of this, we have to start with an idea that ruled science for almost 100 years. The idea that animals feel nothing at all came in 1894. A psychologist named Conway Lloyd Morgan wrote a single sentence that would shape the next century of research. Never explain an animal's behavior as a higher mental process if a lower, simpler one will do. It was meant as caution, and as caution it was wise. If a dog looks guilty by the shredded couch, do not assume it feels guilt. Assume it simply learned that this particular mess plus your face equals trouble. Keep it mechanical, keep it simple. But over the decades, that careful rule hardened into something colder. Animals became, in the language of serious science, biological machines. Input, output, stimulus, response. Nothing inside came to suggest an elephant grieved or a crow remembered your face. Was treated as childish, unscientific, almost embarrassing, and then, slowly, the evidence began to arrive that did not fit the machine at all. Start with the dolphins, because their case is one of the best documented in the entire field. There are dozens of verified accounts of wild dolphins deliberately approaching human divers for help. The most famous happened near Hawaii on a night dive in 2013. A wild bottlenose dolphin swam out of the dark toward a diver named Keller Laros. A fishing hook was buried in its fin, a long line tangled tight around its body. The dolphin did not thrash, it did not flee. It came to one specific person and went still. And when the line was wrapped in a way the diver could not reach, the dolphin rotated its own body to give him a better angle. Think about what that requires a wild animal. Never trained, never fed by this man, recognizing a problem it could not solve and choosing a human as the solution. That is not a reflex, that is a decision, and it was not a single lucky story. Reports like it come from across the world, across decades, from different species that never met. A wild manta ray off Australia, its fin snagged with hooks, holding motionless beside a diver until the barbs were pulled free, seals nosing at net. Came sea turtles going still under human hands. Somewhere in these encounters, a very old instinct is being overridden and something new is taking its place. Now hold that thought, because the next animal is the one that should genuinely unsettle you. Crows. A crow's brain is the size of a walnut, and it may be one of the most sophisticated social instruments on Earth. At the University of Washington, a researcher named John Marsloff ran an experiment that sounds almost unbelievable. His team wore a specific rubber mask while trapping and banding wild crows, an unpleasant experience for the birds, but harmless. Then they walked around campus wearing that same mask, doing nothing at all. The crows dive-bombed it, every time, for years. But here's the part that breaks your brain. Crows that had never been trapped, that had never seen the original event, attacked the mask too. The trapped birds had told them they had passed the face along parent to chick, neighbor to neighbor, a wanted poster with no paper. Crows hold grudges and they share them. And the mirror image is just as real. People who feed crows regularly report finding gifts left behind, buttons, beads, tiny shards of bright glass, placed exactly where the food goes. In Seattle, a young girl named Gabby Mann began sharing her lunch with the crows in her yard. Came within months. The crows were bringing her presents in return, a polished bead, a tiny screw, a smooth piece of blue glass laid carefully on the empty feeder. Once, when her mother lost a lens cap in a nearby alley, a crow brought it back and set it on the ledge. The Birds had watched and remembered and paid a debt no one asked them to pay. The crow is not just taking, it is keeping a ledger, and in that ledger you have a balance. So when a trapped crow lets a human free it, stays calm, watches, does not bolt, something extraordinary may be happening inside that walnut-sized brain. A rapid, silent cost-benefit calculation, a social judgment made in a fraction of a second, came, and this is exactly the moment where we have to slow down, because this is where almost everyone gets the story wrong. Because there is a much less romantic explanation sitting right here, and it is often the correct one. When a wild animal is trapped or injured, its body floods with cortisol and adrenaline, and its nervous system tips into pure crisis. And in that state, many animals fall into something called tonic immobility. It is an ancient survival reflex. The body simply shuts down. The animal goes limp, still, silent. From the outside, that stillness looks exactly like trust, like calm, like cooperation. It is none of those things. It is terror so total the body has stopped fighting. Came wildlife rehabilitators. The people who do this every single day will tell you plainly that a stress-frozen animal and a settled animal are not the same, and confusing them is dangerous. But they will also tell you that the difference, once you have seen it, is unmistakable. A frozen animal is rigid, its breathing shallow, its eyes locked wide and glassy. A settled animal breathes slower, its muscles soften, and, sometimes remarkably, it leans into contact instead of merely enduring it. One raptor rehabilitator with 15 years of experience described something that is hard to explain away as reflex. Certain birds she nursed for weeks would, by release day, turn their heads toward the sound of her footsteps. Not toward strangers, not toward the other workers who fed them, just as often. Toward her, specifically, not because she had bribed them, but because over many quiet days, she had come to mean one thing to that animal. The absence of danger. Something in those birds had built a map of the world, and on that map, she was marked safe. Whether you call that trust, or learned association, or something we do not have a word for yet, it is real, and it is not the same as fear. So we are left with two possibilities for that quiet, still, seemingly grateful creature. Either it understands that it is being helped, or it is simply too broken by fear to run. And the truth, the real answer, is that the most important discovery in this whole field is not choosing between those two. It is realizing that understanding help and feeling gratitude were never the same question in the first place. Here is the distinction that changes everything. Perceiving something is not the same as caring about it. A dog can smell the cortisol on your skin with staggering accuracy, but detecting your sadness and being moved by it are two completely different machines. And when scientists finally designed experiments to separate the two, the results were astonishing. In Japan, researchers ran a now famous study with capuchin monkeys, small, sharp-eyed primates. The monkeys watched a human either help another person or refuse to help them, struggling with a task. The monkey itself was never involved. It was only watching. Afterward, each monkey was offered food from both humans. Overwhelmingly, the monkeys took food from the helper and refused it from the one who had been unkind. Not unkind to the monkey, unkind to a stranger the monkey had never met. Sit with that? A monkey watches you treat someone else badly, decides what kind of creature you are, and files it away to use against you later. Wild animals are not passively reacting to us. They are judging us morally from across the room. And if you want to see how far this capacity for care can stretch, you have to look at the largest brains on land. Elephants. Scientists have a name for the behaviors we are circling here, prosocial behavior, helping that reaches beyond narrow self-interest. And elephants may be its clearest example anywhere in the animal kingdom.
They have been filmed hauling each other out of mud pits, wrapping their trunks around a trapped companion and pulling until it comes free. When a calf stumbles, adults who are not its mother will double back to lift it, but the observations that stop researchers cold involve us.
There are accounts from rangers across Africa of wild elephant herds encountering an injured or unconscious human. Instead of stampeding, the herd slows. It moves around the person with deliberate care, and in some cases, it stays nearby until other people arrive. Wild elephants have even been seen covering human bodies with branches and leaves, the same quiet ritual they perform for their own dead. That is not self-preservation. There's no advantage in it. There's no food, no safety, no reason. It looks unavoidably like grief offered across the barrier of species to a creature elephants had every reason to fear. The scientific term for it is cross-species empathy, and it is no longer a fringe idea. It is studied, documented, and real, which brings us to the deepest layer of all, the evolutionary puzzle underneath everything. Why would a wild animal have any ability to read human kindness at all? Evolution should have built the opposite. For almost our entire shared history, a human approaching meant one thing: death. So where does this openness come from? The answer is that it was never really about us. Animals that live in complex societies, dolphins, elephants, wolves, primates, crows, survive by reading each other constantly. Is that approaching group member coming to groom me or to attack me? Is this an ally or a threat? To survive, they had to evolve a machine for reading intention, for modeling the mind of another creature from its movement alone. And that machine does not check what species it is pointed at. A slow approach with no aggressive posture reads as safe. Whether it comes from another dolphin or from a diver in black neoprene, the signal is the signal no matter the body it arrives in. So the whale that circled back was not thanking you, not the way a person would. It was running social software built over millions of years for its own kind, and that software simply worked on us too. Wild animals may understand kindness not because they know what a human is, but because they know what kindness looks like in anything. And once you see it that way, the failures matter just as much as the miracles, because the feel-good videos never show you the animals for whom none of this works. Rehabilitators will tell you that some animals never settle. Not once, not for a moment. They stay at maximum terror from the day they arrive to the day they are released, and they explode out of the crate without a backward glance. And that is not a failure. That is a wild animal doing exactly what a wild animal should do. There is a darker limit too, the one that keeps rehabilitators awake at night. Some animals learn the lesson too well. They come to associate humans with food, with safety, with the absence of threat, and they carry that trust back into a world full of people who do not deserve it. A tame wild animal is a dead wild animal eventually, which is why real rescue is a strange, careful art. Workers feed eagles with hand puppets shaped like adult birds, so the chick never bonds with the human face. They stay silent, they hide their eyes. They help without ever letting the animal know a human was the one helping. You have to be kind and invisible at the same time. So, do wild animals know when we are helping them? The clean answer we wanted does not exist, but something far more interesting is true instead. They cannot know what a human is. Not really, but many of them can read the shape of an intention. The difference between a body that means harm and a body that means none. The crow remembers your face for years and tells its children. The dolphin turns its wound towards your hands. The monkey refuses the gift of someone it watched be cruel. The whale finds your eye in the dark water and holds it there. None of that is nothing. None of it is an accident. None of it is biology being carelessly poetic. Kamit is a mind built for reading other minds, reaching across the gap between species and, for one impossible moment, finding us on the other side. And here's the part that should stay with you. Every animal you meet is adding you to a record you will never see. It moves through crow warning networks and elephant memory and the quiet watchfulness of creatures that have been studying us far more closely than we have ever studied them. So the next time you slow the car for something crossing the road, or move a turtle off the asphalt, or call a number for an injured bird by the side of the trail, understand what you're doing. You're not just saving one animal, you are leaving a mark in a ledger kept by a mind that is not human about what kind of creature you turned out to be. Somewhere out there, a crow is watching you right now and deciding you may as well give it something good to remember.